Right, update to where we are in the workshop. The Commando's finished, and we're going to take this out and we're going to give it a road test, a bit of a shakedown. A lot of work's been done to that one, so we can talk about that one later. The Matchless, on this side of it, nothing's been done here, but I'll take you to the bench and we got on with the engine, but we're still waiting for parts. So you may remember the broken crankshaft. Well, this is a new crankshaft and we managed to get hold of another conrod. And this has been built up with new shells. But there's one thing I'm waiting for, and the case that the crank side broke, sorry, I'll say that again. The crankshaft, when it broke in the right hand side of the crankcase. This crankcase bearing, main bearing, I did find a crack in it and I'm still waiting for a replacement. If I take the outer race off the bearing, if we look here, now I had to put this case in the oven, warm it up so I could drop the bearing out, but I noticed there was a crack. Now since the bearing's been out of the case, it's actually moved, but you can see there's a crack. And in the race itself, it's in one or two places I can show you here. And what probably happened is when the crank, if I put that back together just very quickly, it's a bit tight, and this is why I noticed there was something wrong with it. Let me put it in from that side. Okay. I would imagine when this was running, this bearing being supported in the crankcase, when the crank broke, this was unsupported. And of course it's loaded the bearing up in the inside, causing probably a lot of strain on the outer cage, because that's thinner material than the inner race. So, inner cone rather. So that really probably didn't help it. So that should be here, but this is all built up. So a little bit fiddly on these because you've got the centre bearing, but I managed to get shells for it and that's all done. So that's where we are with that one. Now, where are we with the Dominator? What did we find wrong with this? Brake plate. It was just the down drag link here, just the brake arm. That it's got an oval hole and it had worn. The edges are gone, so a case of welding it up and reprofiling with a file to get it a nice tight fit and push it back on. I did mention about spindle and about the nuts. This is like a QD hub, but the sprocket does stay on the hub itself. On this side, yes, this nut does come away and the spindle comes out the other side. I actually have machined this down and cleaned up the adjusters, and now the adjuster is in the correct position on the nut itself, on this side and on the other side. So that's all that had to be done really. But when we get back to his engine, we've been waiting for an oil pump, and that's arrived today. So the engine, what have we done? We've had the crank out, we cleaned out the sludge traps, we put new shells in, the main bearings have been cleaned, we repaired that spindle that supports the intermediate gear. That's all been sorted out now. We did put a new sprocket on the cam shaft here. It's all been timed up. These are a bit fiddly to do. So now this has been tensioned with a new adjuster. So everything's set here now. It's had new rings, it's had the bores honed, and now we're ready to put the head back on. We need to assemble the rockers in the head, but the head's had the valves redone. I'll just show you in a moment on that. So that really is ready to finish off today maybe and put back in the frame. So yeah, things have come together. I'll just show you the head. When I took the valves out of this, I found that the inlet valves are actually in the exhaust ports. And there's a difference in diameter because everyone knows that the inlet valves are much bigger and the exhaust valves are smaller. So if you put the exhaust valve in the inlet side, it's way down inside the valve seat. So that was a bit strange. So that's been sorted. So they're okay. They are recessed a little bit, but it's fine. But that's done. The seats have been cut and the valve faces have been ground. So that's all done. But we just need to put the rockers back in there. Right, the little Honda ST70. Now, there's a video out, and I think you're all watching it now, but who hasn't watched it, watch it, because it's quite fun. Just to say, this bike came my way, it was given to me, an old boy died and it was left to me. But it was used in a garden by grandchildren, and it's had quite a life. I rode it around the woods quickly just to show you how it spent most of its life. But it is reliable. I have cleaned it up, and I do intend to keep it, and it will get cherished. I will ride it around when I get bored in the workshop and want a break sometimes. But it's a fun little bike and worth watching. Right, I just want to say one thing, well, more than one thing. What's important to me and important to a lot of people like myself that restore these old bikes. There are no shortcuts if you want it done properly. What tends to happen, and I think this is an example here, someone buys a bike, there's a few issues with it, they take it to someone that says, I can sort it out. They spend maybe a day, 2 or 3 days maybe, and it is no better. They haven't actually got to the crux of the problems. They might skirt around and then the guy gets charged quite a lot of money and you're still not happy. What I'm saying is, with all this old stuff, if there's a few issues with it, go to someone who will take it on and will guarantee to you and he'll do it properly. All the parts are available for these engines. Norton are very good. Norton Twins, Andover Norton, close to me, really good company. They will supply you with all the parts, but most of all, instruction manuals, parts list. Do your research. Make sure you get your list of parts correct and make sure you've got the right tools to do the job. That's more important. But if you're seeing someone like me to do your work, you will, at the end of it, it won't be cheap because there are no shortcuts and time is time, isn't it? And the amount of time you can put into stripping this out, examining all the parts, looking at the wear and tear, doing machine work like in the back here to a certain degree, but making sure then when this is built back up, it's going to have another life. It's going to last. I mean, this has had, as we know, it's had the bottom end taken out, we've had the crank out, because the reason we took it down, we found this spindle was loose, so I mentioned we had to take it apart to sort that out. And in doing so, we found that the con rods are on the wrong side of the journals, we found the valves are in the wrong ports, and so we've sorted all that out. We've honed the bores, we've put new rings in, we've put shells in, so that is built up almost like a new engine. And the gearbox is the same, that's going to be built up. The heart of your bike, heart of your motorcycle, is the engine and your gearbox. And that's where you want to put your money. Looking at things that are all shiny, brilliant, looks nice, but you don't know what's going on inside here. This has got to be right. All those other things, they're secondary really, superficial, and you can have a scruffy tank, but I'd far rather have a rebuilt engine and a slightly scruffy oil tank that I could paint sometime later on. But yeah, it isn't a quick fix having it done properly. It won't be cheap, but if you don't go down that road and just do certain little jobs, it's always going to be an issue and it'll always come back to you. I don't want things coming back to me. That's why I spend the time taking it apart and doing it properly, because I want my workmanship to be regarded as good and not get tarnished with people that do bodges. So yeah, that's where we are. It isn't a quick fix. Right, so we're going to talk about the Scott. So before we do that, really helpful, the National Motorcycle Museum Archive Division have actually got all the original prints, documentation from Bruce Main Smith. So all the manuals, all the parts lists, they're all available through them. They will photocopy all the originals off for you. And if we just go through this, it will show you all the sort of information you're going to need to know. So useful. What we got here is we got books here actually on the Matchless and also on the Scott. But on the Scott we have over there, we got one on the sidecar, but this will show you so much information, and it would go through your girder forks, and it will give you references to literally anything you need to do. Like, we're not going to open up too much on this engine because, as I think I mentioned to you, the cylinder head, if we disturb the top nuts, the studs can be corroded into the head, and we could end up with all sorts of problems. I think we're just, as we said, we're going to show you in a moment what we're going to do to get it running first. But this will give you all your part numbers. It will give you your whole complex features of your engine, your gearbox, so you can always reference this and you can get the correct numbers of those original parts. They might be cross-referenced over a more modern number now used as a reference, but everything is listed, so it really is very useful. But do use all this because it is available to you. So don't forget, National Motorcycle Museum. Okay, so the sidecar on this Scott, it's actually a Swallow sidecar. Here it does show a two-seater Touring Deluxe. The one we have is actually got the single seat, but it's very similar. And I can't show you any more of it today because actually it's been taken away and the customers decided to do all the plywood and the all the recovering the seats and the canopy himself. But we will show you some pictures as that goes along. In fact, as we took it apart, we found it's actually red underneath, so it's been quite nice to see, and it's proper colour. But here you can see the canopy. I believe that's in not too bad a condition, that can be treated, but all the leverettes can be replaced, and inside all the trim wear's got to be done. We're going to tidy up the chassis, but it's really fairly good, really. Okay, on the Scott, we are actually doing another video on this, so this is just to show you just quickly what's going on. The seat's been taken off, the tank's been taken off, the toolbox has been taken off, and the horn. And we got to the stage where we could have a quick look at the engine, but I would just show you quickly. Okay, I've already had this off, but I'll put it back on for you for the moment. We're just going to take the carburettor off the manifold. Now, that exposes the manifold itself, but what we have on both sides is the transfer port cover. And this one here, because you're on focus with that, we're just going to remove that. Now, this was quite corroded. I have cleaned this up. It was where obviously it got corrosion from the aluminium over a period of time. But what we wanted to see inside was the state of the piston, because we can see the skirt of the piston and we can see the conrods. Now if I turn it over, you can see the transfer ports being opened and closed. If I turn that slowly, and also what we notice, there are grooves in the piston. That is to trap the oil, because the oil is fed in to the crankcase. It mixes with the fuel. Now, if you look at the conrod in the window, it's nice and shiny. They are polished, and had that been rusty, we would have to have taken the engine out and stripped it down. Another interesting thing, if the camera can pick it up, is in the centre we have an exposed flywheel. It runs in the centre of the crankcase halves, but that is exposed. It's a bit like you would get on an old steam engine, really. It's quite unusual. And we have here, on this side, we have a chain that drives to the magneto, and on the other side we have a chain that drives to the clutch. So it's very different from your conventional engine setup. But this is a big two-stroke. It's 600cc, parallel twin, slightly sloping, it's water-cooled. Right, the Scott. Remember when I first started talking about this, I said I needed to do some research. I hadn't got the knowledge on a Scott, so I needed to find out how these work, these engines, and what to do. Now, I was very lucky. A guy contacted me from Scotland. His name was Kevin Bayliss. Now, Kevin is a real guru of these. He knows Scotts inside out, and he's actually given me all the pointers I need. He's told me to get in touch with him any time I need. But basically, with these engines, there's certain things you need to just check first. If there isn't a water leak from the head, don't disturb it, because the studs go into this head and they corrode badly. If you try and remove these, they can shear off. And he said to me, really what you need to do is open up the transfer port windows and have a look inside. See if you've got corrosion on the conrods. If you haven't, all things being good and the pistons are good, clean out the drain down. In the bottom of the engine we have a plug that we undo, like a drain plug, and we can get rid of all the oil that's sat down in the bottom of the engine, because it has had oil go through. It normally premixes with the petrol, but because this has been standing around, oil has gone through the pump, has laid in the bottom. We're going to clean it out. He is the guy that I can reference when we come to doing this work on here, just to give me some, tips, because I don't work on Scots. I normally work on more modern type two-strokes, more conventional type two-strokes, air-cooled, your Bantams and your Villiers engines. But yeah, information like this is priceless. So thank you, Kevin, and I much appreciate you contacting me. So really, I think we won't have to do too much of this. We've checked things out. The internal side of the engine looks good. We'll sort the points out. We'll get a spark. We'll put the tank back on, put new oil in it, make sure the pump is working correctly, the Pilgrim pump, get a good supply of oil, and we go from there. We just want you to really see it running if we can get it running, and we can then get a good idea of what it's like, because we don't want to take too much of this bike apart and change it in any way really, more than we have to. So yeah, keep watching, and I'm sure you're going to enjoy it. Okay, nice feature. This is the horn. It has the Scott logo and the squirrel, because it is a squirrel. The Scott flying squirrel. So that is a lovely horn. So hopefully we can get that working. Here is just a cover that goes over the drive chain to the magneto and the carburettor. Amel carb, early carburettor with separate float bowl. Tank, interesting for people that don't know. This is a split tank, oil and petrol. So the oil for the engine goes into one side of the tank and neat petrol on the other side. It is mixed actually through the engine itself. When it enters the engine, after it's gone through the Pilgrim pump, that's when it does its lubrication. What have we got here? The transfer port covers for both sides, and the points. I mentioned to you about the points, very corroded. I've taken the points assembly out. As people know, there's just a screw in the centre of the magneto. You undo that, and it's on a taper, and you just put a pair of pliers in, wiggle it, and this whole assembly comes out. So the points, and we've got the earthing brush there. Most of those go missing. Most of the jobs I find, I have to try and find them. The points are very, very corroded on the outside, but we can clean those up. And there seems to be quite a good surface area still, so we can probably set that mag up and we get a spark, and then we can get it running for you hopefully. But yeah, it looks in fairly good order really. I would say, looking at what we looked at just now inside the engine, there is no carbon. I reckon this has been worked on a long time ago, then probably laid up for whatever reason, because it was covered in like a grease, but there is no carbon in the, literally on top of the pistons, on the crowns of pistons. And something else we notice here is the exhaust has been opened up. Someone's actually cut this in half, and they've actually obviously taken the baffle out and burnt it out, or used caustic soda probably in the past, and it's been rejoined with pop rivets at some stage. But I think it'll be quite straightforward to get up and running. So yeah, looking forward to doing this one. Okay, so we've come back. We've just done a test ride on the Commando 750, and it rides really well. This one is a Mark II, and we're showing them up. We've got a Mark IIA here. We had to do quite a lot of work to this one. As you remember, it needed a new wiring loom, which the customer supplied. But after that, it had issues. We had to find quite a lot. We had to take quite a lot apart. We found the swing arm bushes very badly worn. We found the isoelastic needed overhauling, front and rear. We had to remove the primary chain case, take the gearbox out, do the sleeve gear bushes. We replaced the rubber mounts on the exhaust system. The oil tank had a broken bracket, and we had to replace that and make the mounts fit properly, new ones. We had to overhaul the master cylinder, seal kit in there. We've been waiting for a hose, overhauled the front brake. We painted the stays, had the front brake apart, the caliper apart, mudguard. We've been right through the whole thing. The only thing that really didn't come apart was the main part of the engine. So what we had to do on this side on the bike, we removed the timing case cover. We adjusted that timing chain, as you remember, because it's quite slack. In doing so, you have to remove the points assembly. In this case, it's electronic, so it's got a Boyer unit, has been all retimed, which is time consuming. We had to reinstall the carburetor, been taken off. It has got a Japanese Mikuni carburetor on here. It should have a pair of concentrics, amyl concentrics. So it runs on a single carb, which is fine. Showing them out on my bike. So we set the tappets up, we gave it a good service, replaced the rubber mounts to the exhaust pipes, because they're all rubber mounted. Everything's rubber mounted, as we spoke about the isoelastic. On this side of the bike, before you remove the isoelastic, you have to remove the outer cover first, primary chain case cover, and then you have to remove the clutch. So it's quite a big job, and the drive, the chain, the duplex chain, and the sprockets. In doing so, that exposes the engine, the gearbox. We had to take the side plates off both sides, then remove the battery tray to take out the main plates to get the gearbox out. There's a lot of work on Commandos. It does put some people off. But when you set the isoelastic up on these, especially the vernier type, the later type, it is done and it won't need any more adjustment. This did suffer with the boots that were perished, and you remember I said about had a lever on the front here and this was loose. These bolts, well, the studs for holding this on the front of the engine didn't have any nuts on the other side. Someone had left them loose and they come loose. But now it's a nice bike. We've put a new boot on the ignition switch. We've put an extension on the chain guard. All the little details now are back as they should be. Another little feature, it's only a small thing, is the pilot lights, the display lights. This doesn't have indicators now, but the high beam and the ignition light, you can put these extensions on here. And when you put the headlamp back together, these little pilot lights, they don't get pushed over to one side. It's just a little bit of detail. So yeah, it's had, like I say, a considerable amount of work done to this, but it rides really nice. It's got a lovely exhaust note to it. So this is a Mark II. It's the combat engine, 715 1973. What we have here is a Mark IIA. This one is 1974, but it's not 750, this one's 850. So there are subtle differences. This one is the Interstate with a big tank, and that one is the Roadster. It's a much smaller tank. If you look at this is the 5-gallon tank. It was obviously for the States, really. Much higher, you know, sort of mileage between filling up with fuel. This tank here is a UK spec tank, which is a nice tank because it has a cutaways for your knees. It's a much smaller tank. I've got a feeling, I'm not going to quote the size of that, 3.5 gallon maybe. But basically, this one is a later engine. It's not the combat engine. It should have a pair of carburetors, but this has something unusual. It has a mod that was done by a company called Phoenix up in the Midlands, and it's an SU carburetor. Runs really well, but it should have a pair of amyl concentrics like that one. But people do prefer single carb because they're easier to adjust and they're better on fuel. But they're both nice bikes to ride. You can't go far wrong with a Norton. A Norton really, as I said, the parts are plentiful and they're a good bike. They keep up with modern traffic. And if you're looking at a classic, look at one of these because they do a nice range of bikes. and they are very reliable. You do have indicators with these as standard on anything like from, I think it was like 70 on, 69 it came out. But that should have had it, they've been taken off. But it makes it a very, makes it a good safe bike to ride in modern traffic. You've got good brakes, you can do the upgrades on the brakes, and it gives a fantastic ride. A really nice bike, so consider one of these because you can get the parts easily. Okay, we're just going to do a hot start for you, but before that, just mention when you start these bikes up, you want to warm them up a little bit first. This has a Mikuni carburetor with like a choke that alters the tick over speed. So when it's on choke, it runs quite fast. When you take it off a choke, because it's still quite cold, we're still in winter, you sometimes find that your tick over speed's a bit low. And what most of us do, and you probably do this anyway, you just put your hand down, and where you got your carburetor, sometimes we just adjust the screw in a little bit more, the idle screw, because you don't want that running, like installing straight away. So with this time of year, you can afford to just screw that in a little bit. Now, when you've got the engine hot, you probably might find that the tick over's a bit fast. You just screw it back out just a fraction. It's just in the winter you find that, because the oil's cold in the engine. It does alter as the engine warms up, the tick over speed, when the engine oil warms up. But we're just going to fire this up now. I always like to warm an engine before I run it quickly. I mean, I would start the engine up here and I'll go off to the gate, open the gate up, and I'll take it steady just for a mile or so. I don't run hard with these, I don't rev them hard. We don't with the old bikes. You treat them with respect, you know, because they're old and you don't want to chase them too hard. But always warm an engine up first. I hate it when you see, sometimes you see modern engines, modern bikes I say, and people rev these bikes to the rev limiter. It's not a good thing. You're not doing it any favours at all. But we're just going to start this up for you. It's got a lovely sound. That has a lovely exhaust note. And see, what I'm talking about, the tick over, what we can do, if it's a bit slow, we just screw the screw in a little bit. Just put the revs up. And that's quite normal for us to do that with bikes really. Just when it's very cold, as I say, they run a little bit slower. And when they get hot, it speeds up a little bit. So you can always just adjust it with your fingers.